Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
And today we're reviewing The Man Who Knew Too Much from 1956. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. An American doctor and his wife take matters into their own hands after some assassins who plan to kill a foreign prime minister kidnap their son. And to start off, we're going to talk about the director. This is another Hitchcock movie. Now going down the cast, we have James Stewart, who plays Dr. Benjamin McKenna. We also have Doris Day, who plays Josephine McKenna. We have Brenda DeBonsi, who plays Lucy. We have Bernard Mills, who plays Edward. We have Daniel Galeen, who plays Louis Bernard. We have Christopher Olsen, who plays Hank, the young son. We have Reggie Nalder, who plays the French marksman or the assassin. And we also have the London Symphony Orchestra playing themselves. We also have Barbara Howitt, who is the soloist singer of the orchestra. And we have the conductor, Bernard Herrmann. To start off, I'm going to go down my pros. This movie still has the suspense from when it was made back in the day, and Hitchcock is really known for his movies with suspense. When I was watching this, it just made me feel like I was on edge just to see what was going to happen. It did start off slow, but once it started picking up, the suspense was always there. Some of the angles and shots that Hitchcock uses in this movie are made so you can pay attention to things without you even noticing that you are basically focusing on things. For example, maybe when they walked into the hotel, he pans the camera towards every person in the room and then shifts over to somebody who looks suspicious, and without you knowing, it's hinting that you should pay attention to that character. This is something that Hitchcock did very well with his close-ups and shots and angles, and this movie was phenomenal by using these. There's some scenes that use it, some other scenes that just go through. Also, the way they filmed this movie in the sets and locations, to me it seems like it was amazing. The way the interiors of the halls and the hotels and maybe even like random places, they actually played a lot of detail to it. To me, this is what Hitchcock does a lot. He just basically lingers on certain things, but he also makes it so you can see the detail of the location, the woodwork, the carpets and everything, and especially the lighting. The acting from Doris Day and James Stewart was great, minus some of the cheesy lines that kind of didn't age well with the film, but other than that, their performance were amazing. I really enjoyed Doris Day playing the mother who's worried about her son, but then we have James Stewart, who's the father who will do anything to get him back, even if it means putting himself in danger. I loved how they actually had the real orchestra playing music that was part of the plot that planned the assassination versus the music being played as a soundtrack in the movie. That, to me, that really made the movie, because it involved the actual orchestra score versus just having the score by itself. And then for my cons, some parts of the movie could have been shortened. We get the actual call when they tell him that his son has been kidnapped almost 35 minutes into the movie. This to me seems like all that 35 minutes, it was a workup, but at the same time it could be condensed a little further. I mean, it's good how they introduce the characters and how they talk to each other and converse, but there is so much space that you can actually compress this and probably make it into 20 minutes or less. 35 minutes for the scene to work up to the kidnapping is just too much for me. Other than that, I mean, I don't have much cons of this movie other than a few mistakes here and there, but I still found this movie amazing. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Touly to see how he saw this movie.
I thought the movie was great. The suspense that Sal mentioned, it was definitely there, and it was definitely elevated certain scenes. And I felt like it just kept on building up too as it led to the assassination attempt. And even afterwards, with Ben and Jill trying to rescue their son. That's definitely a highlight of the film. It does a good job at building suspense, as it's sort of expected because it is an Alfred Hitchcock film. So that element is there, and it's nice that it was handled properly. I would say, though, the thing that I enjoyed the most about this film was how James Stewart's and Doris Day's character, how they played off of one another. And in a way, I wish the film would have been entitled something different. Now, I know it's based off an earlier work of Hitchcock, but I feel like the film wouldn't be the same if Doris Day's character wasn't there, or for the amount of impact Doris Day's character, aka Joe, had in this film. So I thought like that the title in itself should have maybe given or alluded to how much of an impact the wife had in stopping the assassination and for rescuing the son. So that's just my little 2 cents on that for how much the two characters, how effective they were on screen. I felt like that was the most enjoyable part for me. And even when they went their separate ways and doing the separate things, it sort of brought things together in a way. Like they were trying to contribute in their own way. The mother, like Sal said, you could see definitely how much she cared for her son in the way she was reacting, even before he got kidnapped too, when she was singing to him and how he was singing in back in return and them practicing, that song. By the way, but the song that she sang in that film, Whatever Will Be, Will Be, I didn't know until I watched this film that song was from this film, because it sort of brings things back in full circle in a way for me, because the first time I heard that song was from an episode from The Simpsons. It sort of played what was happening in that episode too. I think it was the episode where they predicted that a comet was going to hit Springfield, and so in the end everybody was hiding in this shelter that was supposed to have protected them from this comet, but they voted out, I believe it was Ned, because it couldn't fit everybody. Despite being the owner of the shed, they voted him out. While he was out there supposedly alone because everybody else was in this shed, he started singing this song, Whatever Will Be, Will Be. And so it sort of played to the lyrics of the song, right? So for me to have heard it here in this film, The Man Who Knew Too Much, it kind of brought things back in full circle. So now that whenever I hear the song, I would, think of this film. Or whenever I see that episode of The Simpsons, I would think of this film too. So that makes me just appreciate the film a bit more. Yeah, just going back to Doris Day's character, she did play a greater role in this film that I would have expected right when the film started, because I thought she was just going to be that caring mother and she might just be like in the background and not do as much, but she did a lot. So I appreciated Joe's character a lot more because of that. And of course, James Stewart's character, Ben, he was more of the in-your-face, doing the grindy stuff to try to rescue the son, like putting himself in very dangerous situations. And if I were to have a complaint about what was happening, I would say some of the situations that he escaped, or just some of the situations in general in the film that happened, they were too coincidental at times. You could say it was lucky that they got out of this situation, or how things came out in the end. It was kind of due to luck and not really necessarily skill, or because, this is just, a family going on a vacation and they just got put into this situation and they're trying to handle it the best they can, but this isn't something that you deal with on an ordinary basis, so they're just winging it. So I guess I have to take into account the luck factor, but at the same time, some situations where I thought maybe it should have been a little more serious and where this whole coincidental thing should not have come to play, that's up for debate. And even the humor, the film has humor and stuff, but some situations I thought humor should not have been present because of how serious the situation was. And certain situations I feel like too, it ended too abruptly, particularly the ending when Joe and Ben, they just meet up, back at the hotel, whatever, where Doris's friends are at, and they pop in and they're just acting very casual and saying that, oh, we sorry for being away for so long, we went to go get Hank, aka their son, and the movie just ends. I wish it would have been something that would have given what had transpired a little more context instead of just ending it the way it did. Another thing that I thought should have been a little more, that should have been treated with a little more seriousness, is after the ambassador got shot and how he just strode down the staircase and there was in this state of panic and stuff, and then he was like, oh, he wants to meet the lady who helped him escape death, and they're talking as if nothing happened or something. Like it was too casual for me. So these moments in the film where I thought it should have been a little more serious, they sort of played it with this undertone. Like I said, if I did have some complaints, it would be towards that area. But overall, I enjoyed the film. Again, how Ben and Joe, how they were acting around each other and around the people who they met. Again, Doris's Day singing, that was brilliant. Again, with the song of being a cultural phenomenon that came out of the film as well, among many other things, of course, too. But for me, that's one of the things that really stood out. And I guess I'll just bring this back up too. I feel like the film was a tad too long. I think it was an estimate of like a little over 2 hours, or about around the 2 hours mark. It could be due to how things are being executed in this film, like the seriousness at times, or how methodical Hitchcock wanted certain things to be acted out or played out, that maybe he lingered on certain scenes for a bit too long, and that contributed to the length of the film. I don't know. That's just me. That's sort of how I'm reasoning at the moment. I just feel like the film was a little bit too long. Maybe reduce it down to maybe like an hour and 45 or something if they could have, just so that the flow would have been better. At least they didn't leave much out because of that. For those scenes that were cut a little too short, it was kind of like, okay, I know what they were going for, but I wish they would have just played out that scene a little bit more to just give it context. Because like I said earlier, with the ending scene, I was like, oh, that's it. It sort of led me with that pause where I was like, okay, I was expecting a little bit more, but it just ended. Okay, sure. But yeah, overall though, the film was great. I know it's a film that it's relevant to the movie industry. Definitely, I would highly recommend watching it. Not for anything, just to know that this is where that song, whatever will be. If you ever heard it in any other films or any TV shows or whatever, just to know that, hey, this is where they kind of grabbed it from. And because of that, I now know, and I could be forever grateful whenever I hear that song.
Well, I agree with you in the ending scene. It was ended too abruptly. I wanted to see more of the solution, who got the blame for plotting against the prime minister or something else. It seemed like it was just a joke. Hey, sorry, we took too long getting our son. It's like, I was actually thinking there was going to be like a little laugh track or something. You know, that's how, to me, it looks cheesy. But at the same time, this is kind of what Hitchcock does. Like, he summarizes up his movies really fast. It's his signature, but at the same time, I kind of wanted there to be more explanation about Doris Day singing the song. She really didn't want to sing that song in this movie. Hitchcock insisted, and she kind of said that it didn't fit the movie and, you know, this and that, but she sang it and she won awards for it. And this is a song that sticks out. Everybody mentions Doris Day's name. They just go like, oh yeah, that's her song. She went on to sing it in other movies that she was in. Like Touly says, now you know where this song comes from. It comes from this, and it went on to be a very, very famous song. And like Touly pointed out, it even made it to The Simpsons. Next thing I wanted to point out was that, like Touly said about the orchestra scene, it was one of my favorite scenes. The whole suspense it was building up along with the score of the orchestra playing. And this scene lasted for 12 minutes with no dialogue, and it actually took 124 shots. And this whole concept of building this scene reminds me of the shower scene from Psycho, which is another Hitchcock movie. And there's a lot of stuff about that scene in particular. There's even a documentary about it, how many shots it took and how many cuts and edits. So to me, I think this is where Hitchcock shines, where he thinks of all these elaborate scenes with multiple shots and no dialogue that just builds the suspense, and the only thing you hear is the score. And in this movie, it's just not the score laid on the movie, it's actually a live orchestra that we're watching, and the whole suspense about seeing the guys stand up with the cymbals, and that scene where you just see the cymbals actually just like floating in the air. It's this whole build up saying like, this is catechism right here. It's if this two cymbals come together, that's the end. And it's basically almost like a ticking time bomb, you know, because we see the two characters running around, and we do see James Stewart running around and trying to throw his hands up in the air like he's talking. In fact, he actually argued with Hitchcock that he should have some dialogue in this movie of the orchestra scene. But Hitchcock said, no, you're not going to interrupt the orchestra. I want to hear the orchestra. I don't want to hear you talk. So they had a little bickering here and there, but then at the end, James said, okay, I'll just wave my arms. I mean, it does play to the movie. Like, you don't want to hear anything else, but you just want to hear the music, and it's getting closer to the end, and you know the end is coming near, and you see these people just running and seeing how they're going to basically stop this from happening. And I think Touly mentioned this, that this is the second time around that Hitchcock original film, The Man Who Knew Too Much from 1934, this is the remake. Actually, Hitchcock came out saying in an interview when they asked him which of these two movies he preferred, he said that he preferred this one from 1956 because it was from a better direct. But in a sense, later down the line, Hitchcock has come to say that he likes the original from 1934 due to the movie being a little bit unpolished. It's kind of a, rough around the edges, but that's what he likes about the original movie from 1934. And actually, the 1934 movie is actually shorter than this one. Like Touly said, this one's 2 hours and change, which to me, again, is a bit too long. So with that, I'm going to ask Touly for his final grade of this movie.
I'm going to give this film a 8 out of 10 for, again, its cultural relevancy. Again, I just love how James Stewart's character and Doris Day's character, how they interacted with one another on screen or even off screen, just to get to the ultimate goal of this film, among all the other things that I already mentioned about this film. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for me.
I'm going to give it the same grade, 8 out of 10. And before I sign off, I'm going to say that, again, like Touly said, the title of this movie should have been different, especially since the beginning of the movie, in the credits, where it says in the prologue, a single clash of the cymbals and how it rocked the lives of an American family. I think they should have changed the name because it does hint a little bit more that it's more about James and Doris Day is just an extra person in the movie when they both had a significant part in the movie. So if anything, this movie should have been titled something else. So again, 8 out of 10 for me. So that does it for this review of The Man Who Knew Too Much. Please join us next time when we review Field of Dreams.
If you build it, he will come.
Like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, keep watching movies.